And they're not doing the proper role of government. I want to talk a little bit about our arrest standards. Right now, every single person that has an arrestable offense or has a warrant can be brought into the Mesa County Jail. Every single one of them. We do not restrict that whatsoever. If the police officer on scene or the marshal or the deputy believes that they need to come into our jail, they are 100% allowed to bring them to our jail, and we will process them.
Thank you, Todd. Okay, so next question, we're going to go with Todd. If a federal, state, or local government were to implement a policy of door-to-door gun compensation in your jurisdiction, what would you do?
That is a crime. So they can't implement a policy to come take guns from the American people. We are the people. We have the right to possess firearms. Second Amendment of the Constitution gives us the right to bear arms, and it shall not be infringed. So that is a crime. I will not let any level of government come into my county and commit a crime against the citizens. I personally, I don't think that is what will happen. I worry more about the little steps that the government takes in the name of safety. They will say, they'll pass a law that says, like this last year, they passed a law that said safe storage of firearms. That's a hard one to fight, because we want people to store their firearms safely. But again, they're crossing the people's threshold of their door and telling them what to do and how to store their firearms. I worry more about the little incremental things that the government does that will slowly chip away at it. And it may not be enough where everybody stands up and says, well, we're not going to do that. And it'll slowly be accepted. So that's where I focus my attention. I'm part of the Colorado County Sheriff's Colorado Board. We have a lobbyist. I fight legislation like that through our lobbyist.
Same question, over to you, Bob.
Well, I agree. It's not only against the law, it's unconstitutional. And as a sheriff, I would stand up and make sure that that wasn't happening. I agree with Todd that there's a lot of little things that are going on. There's a lot more than just safe storage, but there's a lot more that's going on toward the goal of getting rid of weapons. And I don't think it's as far away as what Todd is talking about. In our legislature right now today, there are a lot of bills that do a lot of things against the gun owners of America and of Colorado. And for example, there is legislation right now to eliminate everything that they call an assault rifle. An assault rifle can simply be a semi-automatic rifle that's currently used for hunting. So I think that it's not just fighting the big case when somebody comes in and says, we're gonna take all your guns. We need to be fighting every step along the way. This is a crisis for us. We have a lot of rights under the Constitution, and there's none of them that are unimportant. But the Second Amendment is a right that protects the other rights. It's one of the most important things that we have out there, and that's something that we absolutely need to fight for, and that's something that the sheriff needs to stand up for as well.
Thank you. Okay, next question, we're going to start with Bob. How will you interact with the federal government when there is a conflict on public lands with county constituents?
Well, the federal government has its part. They have agents that are supposed to be out doing their work, but the sheriff is the head law enforcement for every county. And the sheriff is the one that needs to be in control in those situations. So when there is something going on federal lands, but it involves our citizens, I think the sheriff's office needs to be involved in that. I'm concerned with a lot of the cases where we're giving away rights that belong to the citizens. Right now, I've seen some of the MOUs from the sheriff's office, for example, with BLM, that gives federal officers law enforcement powers to enforce even traffic crimes. And that's a concern for me, because in that MOU, it says those federal officers answer to their federal leaders, not to the sheriff. And so we need to have local control. The sheriff is a very special position. It's not like the chief of police. It's not like any of the other officers out there. It's a constitutional office, and it's to protect us from the federal government.
question, Tom.
So I am the sheriff, and I do work with our BLM partners. I have direct contact with the state rangers. I meet with our BLM rangers on a monthly basis. I am fully aware of what they're doing. There's things we can tighten up. I'm actually working, I think I saw Brandon Siegfried come in here. I'm working with him on going through some of the concerns within our BLM MOU. Quite honestly, the state law does allow BLM to enforce some state laws with the approval of the sheriff. I have some things in this community I want to improve. One of those things is when I drive along I-70 and I see all of the motorhomes and stuff parked out in the desert. I'm not good with that. I need to work with the BLM Rangers. I need to work. I have 5 RAD deputies, or remote area deputies. They're assigned to those areas. They work directly with our BLM Rangers to start improving that. And we've been towing a ton of motorhomes, and we're going to fix that problem. But I do have to work with federal partners to accomplish that. I do expect a BLM Ranger to have the authority, if he sees a crime being committed in this county, whether it be an assault, a sexual assault, any crime out there, misdemeanor or above, that he sees happening in his presence or her presence, that they will have the authority to interject in that. Part of my MOU is they have to call us immediately after that before they. I'm going to respect the stop sign. I'm going to go forward.
So real quick, Todd, will you please tell us what an MOU stands for?
Mutual Operation Agreement between the two organizations.
Thank you. Okay, so this time we're going to go with Todd. This is a 2-part question. The prior sheriff went to the taxpayers for a tax increase for public safety. Citizens are interested to know where those resources have gone. Question 1, what evidence do you have that the additional resources improved public safety? And the second part is, do you think the current funding levels are sufficient, or would you go back to the taxpayers for additional funding?
So as far as the public safety tax, 2017 it got passed, it went into effect 2018. Since then we've added 22 positions. Those positions include intelligence unit, a very robust intelligence unit that looks into cases and pulls all the information in. We handle about 40,000 calls per year, and there's a lot of information in those reports. So we've put some people aside to focus on intelligence gathering for criminals in our community. I don't want people's cars being broken into our community. And if we have people sitting back, going through that information and getting it out, that's what our intelligence unit does. We have a crime reduction unit that was also added with the public safety tax that goes in, they go into flop houses, and this isn't your neighbor that won't keep their weeds cut down. They go into drug houses that have been harming our area and terrorizing neighborhoods for years, and they go in and they resolve that long-term problem for us. They work with the neighbors. If the people want to comply with our group and meet some of those standards where they're actually a productive member of that community and not taking away values from that community, we don't move them out, but we have a robust system where we can move them out of that residence if they continue to bring crime to the area. And I believe our funding is great, and I will not be going after another public safety tax.
Same question to you, Bill?
It was 2-part. What was the second part of it again?
It was, do you think the current funding levels are sufficient, or would you go back to the taxpayers for additional funding?
Thank you. So I believe that the funding is sufficient. They've actually gotten more funding than they ever thought they were going to. At the time, they were thinking it was going to bring in about $5.5 million. The budget in 2022 is just barely under $10 million. So it's brought in so much more money than what they expected. Where the problem is where the money went. If you went to any of the meetings that Matt was having, Matt and Dan Rubenstein, you would have heard that they were going to hire 56 more people. They were going to be deputies out on the street and in the jails, but they haven't hired those. As you heard the number from Todd, that's not even half. And those are not the people that we were told that we were going to hire. If you remember when they were asking for that money, it was because crime was up. And specifically, they said crime was up, violent crime was 500% more than it had been just a few years ago. Now, after all these tens of millions of dollars, where are we at? Crime in 2021 is up 60% over what it was in 2018 before they collected their first dollar. Sexual assaults or sex offenses are up 54%, aggravated assault 61, robbery 71, fraud 21. The clearance isn't going up either. In this last year, 9 out of 10 thefts, or 9 out of 100 thefts were actually solved. 19 out of 100 burglaries were solved. Where did the money go? The money's not going where it was supposed to go. For example, some of the budgets, the 911 dispatch fees, which are $600,000 a year, are paid for out of the public safety tax.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going back to Bob again. What is the RS 2477? Do you support it? Why or why not?
To be perfectly honest, I'm not sure what that is.
I didn't read the question, so I don't know what it is either. Jack? What is the RS 2477? Does anybody know what this is? Okay, we're gonna skip that question, we'll come back. Do you know, Todd? You don't know either.
Hold on.
Brandon knows, Brandon's gonna tell us.
I did not submit this question. It's revised statute 2477. It's how we just opened up 70,000 acres by Quebec with the help of John Mark and the Garfield counties. But it's a federal law that basically protects our routes into public lands.
So it's road access for public lands to be protected.
Passed in 1866.
Thank you. You win the trivia prize. So, go right ahead.
So I'm assuming this has to do with the landowner dispute that is by the Garfield County, Mesa County line. Is that correct?
I didn't submit it, but I can tell you that I submitted a report a few years ago to the county commissioners that there's 450 RS 2477 routes in Mesa County. This probably goes back to when the BLM closed over 2,000 miles of our roads about 4 years ago. And the fact that as a county we did nothing.
Okay, so I'm aware of a little bit of that going on, especially in the Quebec area where private landowners have been trying to cut out the public as well as some of the government. And I think that we've had some good court rulings that have allowed the public back in again. So I'm in support of that if this is what we're talking about, but I honestly don't know that much about it. So.
I do know quite a bit about it, and so the process, and a lot of these aren't things that happened last year. These are historic accesses to our public land through private property, and I understand the process. It's a legality through the county commissioners that they sue to get access back through the private property onto our public land. And there's a lot of public land, and I love our public land we have here in Mesa County. 72% of our land is public land. There's a lot of places you can't get to because roads have been closed off, and I would support if those come up to go ahead and push it through and give us access back to our public lands.
Thank you. Okay, so the next question is kind of a follow-up to that one, and I'm going to give everybody some background before I ask the question. So CRS 116-3-110 is referenced on both the 2015 and 2020 Mesa County Sheriff BLM MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, signed by Matt Lewis. Normally, BLM rangers can only enforce federal rules or laws, not state or local laws. This provision provides a cessation of police authority to all federal law enforcement officers so they can make an arrest in the presence of a state felony or misdemeanor. Sheriff Lewis expanded this police power to include state law petty offenses, county ordinances, Mesa County regulations. So that's writing legislation, to be clear. Would it not take legislation by Colorado and a resolution by the Mesa County Commissioners in order to expand these state legislation and include enforcement of county ordinances? Do you agree with Sheriff Lewis' expansion of police power? Why or why not? And this is going to Todd first.
So I'm going through the MOU right now, and it goes back and forth between myself and the BLM, and I will restrict it to felonies and misdemeanors. I think those are the crimes in our community that we expect a law enforcement, whether it's federal or local or state, that they have the ability to act in those situations. Again, on every single one of them, they have to call us right after they act. So that is my goal. My MOU is not done yet. I do not expect them to be out there forcing county ordinances or petty offenses, but I do want to work with my federal partners to make this community a safer place to live.
I agree, we're working with the federal agencies where we can, and I read the MOU, and there's a lot of good things in that. It allows them to help for search and rescue with injuries, different things like that, but the MOU also gives them unlimited power, even down to the county ordinances. They could stop a neighbor for running a stop sign if they wanted to. The way our Constitution was set up, the way our republic works, is there's a difference between the federal government and the local government. The federal government doesn't answer to us the same way that the local government does and the sheriffs. And so I would be opposed to the way that they're doing it right now. I understand what Todd is saying. It'd be great if something happens, a felony or a misdemeanor in front of one of these law enforcement officers, but every one of you out there have the ability to do the same thing. You could make a citizen's arrest and you could call law enforcement the same way that they would. So I would severely limit all of the interactions that we have between federal government officers and local law enforcement. And I would make sure as the sheriff, anybody that was acting on my behalf would have to answer to me. And according to the MOUs, that doesn't happen. They only answer to their federal authorities.
Okay, we're starting with Bob this time. Do you consider yourself to be a constitutionalist? Where does the Constitution or the government come first or second in your opinion? If elected sheriff, would you support the Mesa County Commissioners in designating Mesa County as a constitutional county?
So you're going to test my memory on three things. So I do consider myself a constitutionalist. A lot of times I'm asked, would I be a constitutional sheriff? And I really hate it when people ask that, because the sheriff is a constitutional office. Every sheriff should be a constitutional sheriff.
Do you consider that the Constitution or the government comes first or second?
Without a doubt, the Constitution comes first. The government actually operates through the Constitution. The Constitution, again, it's us giving some of our abilities and rights to a group of people to run the government for us. But they work for us, they serve us. And that's the government is of the people. And so without a doubt, the government comes second. I would actually say it comes third. I would say the Constitution comes first, the citizens of our republic come second, and the government comes after to serve the other two.
And the last part of that question was, would you support the Mesa County Commissioners in making this a constitutional county?
I absolutely would.
So the Constitution is the superior law of the land. That is the will of the people. It represents the people. It is above everything else. And then I agree, the people come next, and then the government. I am absolutely a constitutional sheriff. I am. From the day I stepped my feet on the yellow footprints at boot camp back in 1995, I was sworn to uphold that Constitution. I've taken that oath several times throughout my career, and recently I took that to become your sheriff. I am absolutely a constitutional sheriff. That has to be at the top of the list of things that we support. Some, I know if it accomplishes what we want it to accomplish. Commissioners get to decide. The legislature like a lot of them. I'm sure Bob doesn't like a lot of them, but it doesn't mean that they're not laws.
All right, we're going back with you, Todd. Are you a member of the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association? If not, why? And would you be willing to join that association?
So I've met with our local group of Constitutional Sheriffs Association. Great people. I've talked to a lot of their principles. I like a lot of their principles. I swore to one Constitution. I swore to uphold one Constitution. I'm a member of County Sheriffs of Colorado. I'm a member of Western States Sheriffs Association. I do not need to pay a membership fee to show that I'm a constitutional sheriff.
Same question, Mike?
So I am not a member of the Constitutional Sheriff's Association. I first became aware of it, I was talking to a gentleman named Gabriel Perez, and he was telling me a little bit about it. So I looked it up on the web, and from what I've seen so far, I think it serves a purpose. And I am looking into it further. I would consider becoming a member. It's not that not going to spend, $30 or whatever it takes to join that. If it's something that I believe in, I would join it, because part of the idea of an association is members are power, and being able to work together brings a lot more results than saying that I'm going to be here in the county, I'm going to try to do the right thing. So if it's something that I can believe in, it's something that I can follow, then absolutely I would join that. I am a member of quite a few different groups. It's because I believe in it, because I want to add my voice to their voice and be able to accomplish something. Thank you.
Okay, we'll start with you, Bob. Colorado has passed a red flag law, risk protection order. As sheriff, you receive an order to confiscate the guns belonging to one of your citizens based on an allegation or information given by a third party. How would you handle this?
There's a lot of bad laws that have come out, and I think red flag is probably at the top of the list. There's a lot of constitutional issues with the red flag law. The only good thing about the red flag law is that it's in the legislation at this point in time to try to get away with it, to do away with it completely. I don't expect the legislation that will repeal it is going to pass, because we have a House, we have a Senate, and we have a governor who are all very liberal Democrats. But there is a court case going through that just got put back through again through the Colorado Supreme Court in January. And the premise of that court case is that it was not passed lawfully. One of the requirements to pass a law through the House is that if one of the legislators asked it to be read, that it has to be read in entirety. And initially they denied that to one of the legislators, and then later they brought a number of people out and they all read it separate pages at the same time. So I think that what we're going to find is that it was not passed, and I think it's going to be repealed in that way. But I do have a lot of problems with it. First of all, I have problems with the Second Amendment aspects of it. I have problems with the due process portion of it. There's just so many different aspects. This is based on not the probable cause that it would take to get a warrant from somebody else, but reasonable suspicion.
Thank you. And same question.
Red flag law or extreme risk protection order is terrible law. It is. It went through. It went through fast. We argued it. Most law enforcement throughout the county or throughout the state argued. There was 2 sheriffs that bought onto it. I do not buy onto it. I think there's ways of dealing with high-risk people. do a criminal investigation. You can take firearms through an investigation if somebody is dangerous. This law, it doesn't even have that part. It doesn't have the due process of an investigation. My biggest argument about it is absolutely ripe for abuse. A sworn ex-husband or ex-wife could submit it, and it will come down and you'll have your guns removed from your house without even being able to say your piece. So I believe actions speak louder than words. So we have had 2 of these come down here to my organization since the red flag law passed. Both of them, we did an investigation into it. We took it back to the judge, had it turned into the temporary restraining order that it should have been in the first place, and did not enforce the red flag law.
Okay, Todd, you're up again. Who does the sheriff answer to?
These guys. I answer to the people. I do not answer to anybody else. You know, there are post requirements to run my organization, to keep people employed, but I answer to the people. And that's a special thing about the sheriff. I don't have to get permission from anybody. I can come to you. If you have an issue, and it is a public safety issue for this community, I can do it. Nobody has the authority, except for you guys in this room, to tell me I can't do something. So, and with that comes a lot of responsibility. It does. I recognize that we live in a diverse county, and there are a lot of views that aren't the exact same as everybody else. And it is a lot of responsibility, and I am up for that path.
So I agree, it is, the sheriff answers to the people that he serves. And just like the sheriff, I take an oath to support the Constitution. Every chief does, every sheriff does. But there's a big difference between a chief of police and a sheriff. Because even though I can take the same oath, I answer to a board. And if that board, remember the Constitution, our constitutional rights protect us from the government. It doesn't protect us from each other, it's the government. And so if the government wants to do something that's unlawful or unconstitutional, and I stand in their way, they can replace me, but they can't with the sheriff. And that's what's so important about a sheriff. A sheriff is our last line of defense. A sheriff is the one that's supposed to stand up for us and protect our constitutional rights. And that's why it's so important to have a sheriff in there that's going to do those things. Now I know that when I had my opening statement, I was talking about the arrest standards. And Todd says everybody can arrest. But the reality is, what is he telling his people? And that's why I'm running. We met in October, and he told me, we sat down and looked at the laws, and he said, he agreed with me, we're not following the laws. We're violating state laws, we're violating judges' orders. And he said that we'll fix them. And he, on paper, got rid of the arrest standards. But if Todd's here, if on the next time, I'll give him part of my time to tell you, what does he tell his people to do with arrest warrants? And how can he tell them not to arrest?
Okay, we're back to you again, Bob. Your authority to block, investigate, and arrest other law enforcement agency personnel makes for a complex relationship. Do you believe that you have the courage to protect Mesa County citizens by enforcing the law against these agencies when they step outside the law or outside their authority, and why should we believe you?
So the sheriff does have authority throughout the jurisdiction, which is the entire county, and that is something that's unique. And that, honestly, is a big part of why I'm here today. And like I said, before Todd was here, I sat down with Matt. And the same things I sat down with Todd, we looked at the laws, and I said, show me where I'm wrong. We're not following the laws. But I don't have the authority to force him to do that. When I met with Todd in October, he said, you know, it looks like you're right, and we'll fix this. These are the kinds of things that are going on. As law enforcement, we're really good. We can plaster our walls and our cars with all these slogans. We can say ethics, integrity, transparency, but we really, really don't do that. And that's what we've got to change. There's no transparency. The things that are going on in the world today, we talk about how high crime is right here. And look at the things that are causing crime other places. We got bail reform going on. That's one of the new liberal agendas. They tried it in California, it didn't work. Did you guys know that we've been doing it here for 10 years? Those are the kinds of things that aren't happening, and we need somebody that's going to stand up and make sure that we're following the laws, not make sure you're following the laws. We have to follow the laws. We have to follow the court orders. We have to do the right things, and that's where we're failing terribly, and that's why our crime rate keeps going up. Thank you.
Yes, the sheriff does have the power to arrest people from other organizations. I've been involved in arresting the people from other organizations. Part of, if you talk about the rule of law says law should be equally enforced upon me, upon the citizens, upon law enforcement in our community. And I do have that responsibility. And a lot of times we work with Colorado Bureau of Investigation in those investigations, or with our critical incident response team that works through that so there's more than one person making the decision. I do want to talk a little bit about what I tell my people about arresting people. I ask my people to make the best decisions they can for that individual. One of the issues my opponent has is that we don't take every single first-time DUI driver and book them into jail. And I do not believe we have to do that. There are some first-time DUI drivers that I do believe belong in jail. I believe a lot of our family members, jail is rough. Jail is really rough. It's full of people with mental health issues, hardened criminals, and people with serious substance abuse problems. And driving under the influence is a big deal. It is. I'm not talking. We spend a lot of money on it. But if your relative gets their first time DUI, do they need to go into that place, or can we release them to a sober person within your household?
Okay, we're back to Todd. Article 6 of the United States Constitution requires each public official to swear an oath of allegiance to the Constitution. What is it that you do to keep this oath?
I think every day for my 22 years that in October this year will be 22 years in law enforcement. Every single day law enforcement looks at what the Constitution says, and we're bound by the 4th Amendment, 5th and 6th Amendment, First Amendment when people are protesting. Everything in the Constitution applies to us on a daily basis. And I've supported that Constitution since I joined the United States Marine Corps, and I fully intend on continuing to support that. We make sure that we pass, when we write search warrants or arrest warrants, that they go in front of a judge, which is the proper due process. Everything I do in my job, the first thing is, are we violating this person's civil rights? Are we violating the Constitution of the United States or the state of Colorado?
So, I hate saying all the things that Todd just said, but it's something that we have to go through it, and we have to make sure that we are respecting the constitutional rights of each person. The oath that we take is a very important thing, and as a chief, I also take that oath on behalf of my officers, and I have to make sure that they're following the laws as well. So it is something that we do every day, and we have to make sure that we continue, because that's really, I think, our number one thing is to support the Constitution of the United States of America and of the state of Colorado. Just to go back again to what my opponent said just a moment ago on the DUIs. When we met in October, it has to do with this oath, because what I told him is I took an oath to follow the laws, and if I can't do that, I'm either going to have to get out of law enforcement, I'm going to have to convince you to follow the law so we can, or we're going to have to resolve it somehow. And at that time, we sat and looked at the laws, and if anybody wants to look up, 42-4-1305 says every DUI must be arrested. And if we're talking about an oath, we're talking about following the laws. We can't change. We have to follow the laws. We're not the legislature. We can't ignore what they're saying. We have to arrest on every warrant. It's a command. we can't decide we're going to usurp the judicial system, but that's what's happening in Mesa County. So when we talk about holding to our oath, we have to do it all the way around, and we're not doing that. Thank you.
Okay, we're back to you, Bob. What does the Fourth Amendment say, and how does it protect the people? Do you believe the Fourth Amendment restricts law enforcement from being able to perform their duties?
I don't believe that it restricts us at all. There are, I guess we would say that the restrictions, if we're looking at it from a law enforcement, but what it's doing is it's making sure we do the right things. For example, if we're going to do a search, we have to make sure that we have probable cause. We have to go through a court. And the reason for that is because we have protections. We are supposed to be secure from unreasonable searches and seizures. We should be secure wherever we're at. And so those really aren't restrictions. What they are actually giving us extra abilities to do something that really weren't contemplated when we did the Constitution. We were not thinking that we were going to have to go out and do these searches, and so they put what could be seen restrictions on, but that's protecting us. And most of those things, if we say the restrictions, it's restrictions on government. So when I'm sitting up here, a lot of times I like to think of myself as a citizen, but when I'm wearing a badge, I represent the government. And as a citizen, I want the government to have those restrictions. I want them to have to jump through those hoops and do things the right way, because that's what protects me and my rights from all of the unreasonable searches that we do see on occasion.
I don't care if it restricts our ability to investigate crime. That is the people's right. That is the Fourth Amendment falls into the Bill of Rights for the United States of America. It says that we're free from unreasonable searches, and I expect our law enforcement to be good at their job. I believe that if there needs to be a search warrant attained, that our deputies and investigators have the ability to go get that warrant. They're absolutely amazing what they do. Like I said, I don't care if it restricts us. We have to find a way to stay within the Constitution and the laws of Colorado. I do want to speak just a little bit about arresting people, and my opponent said that we're an agent of the court and we have to do what the court order says. So I would assume that he would have enforced those 2 red flag laws that came from the court, which was a court order.
Okay, Tom, we're back to you. We have 2 questions left. As sheriff, what do you see is your role as the fire marshal?
So, fire marshal is responsible for wildland fire throughout the county. So, there's districts within our community that I am responsible with coordinating with. The fire districts, once they have a fire that exceeds their authority, my responsibility is to take over that fire. We work together. We're a community where the district doesn't just leave. The district helps us with that fire. Even when it's at the district level, we staff a brush truck. We go out there and help them. But kind of the chain of operations for how a fire works, once it exceeds our level, it goes to the state level. And at that point, it's my job to coordinate with the state to make sure that people's houses aren't in danger, that we get that fire out as quickly as possible, and that it does not cost the citizens of Mesa County more than it should. We always have some responsibility in it. Sometimes we're able to put a tanker engine out there or something, and that will cover our expenses. But in some of these fires, our responsibility gets over $250,000. So and there's also mitigation efforts. We do a lot of mitigation efforts around this community to try to reduce the fire in our urban interface.
Thank you.
So one of the responsibilities and duties of the sheriff is to be the fire marshal for the county. And as the fire marshal, the sheriff is responsible for any fires that occur in unincorporated areas. That's areas that aren't within a municipality or within a special fire protection district. And in my past, I actually started out in the fire service until I was old enough to go through an academy. And so I've had a lot of interaction in this area. Most of the time, the fires would be handled simply by the agencies that are nearest to that. But as Todd said, there's statutory requirements for the sheriff as a fire marshal. If it exceeds a certain amount, if it gets into areas that are beyond the capability of some of the jurisdictions, then the sheriff gets involved in that point. If it's in unincorporated area, it's the sheriff's responsibility to make sure the fire is extinguished. A lot of times in Mesa County, it's using fire districts or having BLM come in. Beyond that, there's also some statutes having to do with financial responsibility. And by going through the sheriff's office as the fire marshal, there's a lot of avenues for reimbursement and costs covering for the different fires as well.
Thank you. The final question starts with Bob. What qualifies you to be elected as sheriff of Mesa County?
Thank you. So the main reason I'm running is because of a belief that we need to do the right thing. And when we started this country, the idea was not to have professionals that went in as politicians and stayed there forever. It was the idea of the baker, the butcher, the farmer that would go in, do their duty, and come back. But with law enforcement, it's changed a little bit, and you have to have experience as well. Beyond the experience, I think the most important thing is a willingness to follow the Constitution, especially when it relates to the sheriff. As I said before, as a chief, I can take the oath to support the Constitution, but the reality is, if my board decides that they're going to do it anyway, they can get rid of me and put somebody else in. I believe in the Constitution. I believe in law enforcement. I've spent 32 years in Mesa County enforcing the laws fairly and evenly. And I believe that as sheriff, I can continue to do the same thing. But the difference would be, I would be able to impact other agencies. As Todd is saying, you know, it's good that the first time DUI shouldn't go in. Well, that's not my decision. If the state law says we have to do it, we have to do it. I would do the same thing with warrants. So many of our victims are cheated out of justice because people never go to jail. There's people out with 10, 11, 12 warrants. They get caught doing something and we write them another ticket. They don't have to show up.
Thank you.
And the question was what qualifies?
Yes, I'll repeat it. It is, what qualifies you to be elected as sheriff of Mesa County?
So, as a Marine, I was awarded Non-Commissioned Officer of the Year and the Navy Achievement Medal for my leadership. I have worked at every rank within the Sheriff's Office, from deputy to sheriff, receiving 2 life-saving medals during that time. I have managed a budget of over $35 million. I have a bachelor's degree in public administration with an emphasis on public safety, and that was hard to go back and do. I didn't get to go to college right out of high school. I did it during the middle of my career when I was raising kids and having a job. I have led 250 employees and 250 volunteers for the last 4 years. I have partnered with the Clifton Community Transformation Group to improve the quality of life issues in Clifton. I have partnered with business owners and residents to reduce crime. As an operations captain, I introduced the Crime Reduction Unit that has worked with residents to remove criminal activity terrorizing their neighborhoods. I am the co-chair of the Veterans One Source Center that provides a one-stop shop for veterans in our community. I am a board member with the County Sheriffs of Colorado. I am on the High Intensity Drug Trafficking Executive Board. More than that, my love for this community and my leadership to influence positive change is what qualifies me to be your sheriff.
Okay, we're gonna start closing statements with Bob because we opened with Todd. So you'll have 90 seconds to give us your closing statements.
Thank you. First, I appreciate everybody that showed up tonight, and it shows a real desire to find out what's going on. And I want to acknowledge Stan for the Constitution for putting this on, and thank you. As you can see, there's differences between myself and my opponent. And his plan hasn't changed. It's the same failed policy that's created a steep increase in crime that continues to plague our community today, with a few more liberal social programs that are sprinkled in. But these policies have allowed crime to continue to skyrocket, and they're still going up. We need a change of direction. And the victims of crime, they need consideration and justice. As conservatives, we believe in helping others, but we also believe in justice. And the actions of our sheriff's office consistently put the criminal above the victims, and social justice over the rule of law. And this has contributed to the increase in crime, and particularly in violent crime. In 2017, the sheriff came to us with a plan, just like today, and we gave them everything they requested. But now violent crime is 60% higher than when they got their first of millions of dollars just a few years ago. I'm not about social programs. I'm not about free passes for criminals. If elected, I will be about doing the job that I was elected to do. I would serve the citizens of Mesa County by enforcing and following the laws and the Constitution. I'm Bob Dowling, and I would appreciate your vote. Thank you, and God bless.
I do want to thank everybody for giving up their evening and coming and listening to us talk. Thank you to the board. I know this doesn't happen by accident. It's a lot of work to get everybody here. I want to talk a little bit about myself. Growing up, my summer jobs were stacking hay and picking fruit. I am an avid hunter that cherishes our public lands. I left home when I was 17 years old, and I have earned everything I've accomplished through hard work and perseverance. I have been blessed to be surrounded by amazing people who have made me the leader I am today. Listen, we are in trying times as a county, as a state, and as a nation. Tough times make us better, we know that. I am not a politician. I am a lawman and a leader in this community. I recognize that I am the sheriff for all 160,000 residents of Mesa County. I have been a Republican all my life. I have served the party as a precinct committee person, a district captain. I have been a delegate to the county assembly, state assembly, and 3rd Congressional District Assembly. I've also been a sergeant at arms at our county assembly. I love this community, and I am the sheriff that will lead us into a safer tomorrow. God bless you all.
So we've got a couple announcements to make, and then we'll move to a few other exciting activities tonight. Number one, events like this happen because of our membership. And we are so excited that we are growing. And those of you that are not a member of Stand for the Constitution, there was a fee at the door. If you were a member, there would not have been a fee for this event. So our membership has value, and it's through our membership that we're able to provide activities and things like this that we put on for this tonight and last week. So if you're not a member, we would appreciate your consideration in signing up to become one. Our membership fees are very reasonable, and you get a great value for your money. So next thing, you all received a ballot when you checked in. If anybody did not receive a ballot, if you slipped by, please let the ballot box ladies know so we can get you a ballot. And you guys can go ahead and fill out your ballots for your chosen candidate. And we will be counting those at the end of the evening. Right now, we're going to take a 15-minute break. We have all kinds of yummy goodies in the back, everything from savory items to dessert items. We appreciate your donations to help us out, as this is a fundraiser for our organization. And after 15 minutes, we're going to resume with the remainder of the candidates who are either running unopposed or did not have an opponent available to do a debate with. So you guys go ahead and take a 15-minute break, and we will be back here at 5 minutes to 7. And I look forward to continuing the evening from there. Thank you. Hey, you guys. Thank you.
Sorry, we could.
Remember what I told you about the meaning of the dance?
Mujukira bigalagambe okunyonyola kwa mazina genda kuzina.
Also, if you've never seen a worship dance flag,
Bw'oba tulabako flag ezokwesa nga basinza.
the reason that we dance with them sometimes, the reason that we dance with them,
Ensonga lwaki tuzina ne flag zino ebiseera ebimu?
is because every time Israel went to war,
Kubanga akaseera konna Isirayiri bwe yagenda okulwana,
the women would go first,
abakyala be bagenda okusookayo
carrying banners,
nga bakutte flags
to declare the Lord's victory.
okulangirira obuwanguzi bwa Katonda.
And they would dance a victory dance for the Lord.
Era baazinanga amazina ag'obuwanguzi nga bazinira Katonda.
You are not hidden. Never been a moment you were forgotten. You are not hopeless. You have been broken, your innocence stolen. I hear you whisper underneath your breath. I hear your rest so wet, your rest so wet. I will send out an army to find you in the middle of dark night. Is through, I will rescue you. There is no distance cannot be covered over and over. You're not defensive. I'll be your shelter. I'll be your honor. I hear you whisper underneath your breath. I hear your rest so wet, your rest so wet. I will send out an army to find you in the middle of the dark night. I will rescue you.
everyone. I feel like it's like Days of Our Lives. If you just stay tuned, halfway through the day, I'll have a fresh new update for you on the dramas that are happening. It's not drama, it's like good stuff, but